Good Wednesday afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. Happening today, President Trump will address the nation with what the White House is calling an important update on the war in Iran. It is set for 7 o'clock our time and signals a possible turning point in the war. Just yesterday, Trump said he does expect to leave Iran in 2 to 3 weeks and made clear that a deal with Iran is not required in order to end the fighting. Tonight's address comes as the war is driving prices higher here at home. Gas now topping $4 a gallon nationwide for the first time since 2022. In Minnesota, the average has jumped to $3.52 a gallon, up more than 70 cents in just 1 month. Oil prices keep climbing because Iran has blocked the Strait of Hormuz, a major oil shipping channel. Now, the president is calling on European allies to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying the U.S. will not be involved.
What happens to the Strait, we're not going to have anything to do with, because these countries, China will go up and they'll fuel up their beautiful ships and they'll leave and they'll take care of themselves. There's no reason for us to do it.
Another major development this morning, American journalist Shelley Kittleson, who you see there, is believed to have been taken by Iranian-backed militants in Iraq. The State Department says it is working with the FBI to secure her safe and immediate release. Meanwhile, President Trump is suggesting that the United States may leave NATO. That is what he told the British publication Telegraph. Trump has repeatedly criticized a lack of support from NATO members for the Iran war. Members of NATO have been reluctant to deploy military assets to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying they did not start the war and therefore it is not their problem. Today, President Trump sat in the Supreme Court for a hearing about birthright citizenship. He is the first sitting president to attend oral arguments at the nation's highest court. The case involves an executive order he signed last year restricting birthright citizenship. Should the administration win its case, it would stop children of undocumented immigrants or temporary residents from automatically becoming citizens. The federal government called its immigration surge here in Minnesota a push to arrest the, quote, worst of the worst. But new data released through a lawsuit tells a more complicated story, showing thousands arrested and most without criminal convictions. Here's Jessica Hart.
At the height of Operation Metro Surge, thousands of federal agents walked Minnesota streets. To understand why they were even here in the first place, you have to go back to December, when President Donald Trump said this about the Somali community in Minnesota.
We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you.
Deporting undocumented Somali immigrants was a major reason for the surge, but new data obtained by the Deportation Data Project out of the University of California shows less than 3% of people arrested during Operation Metro Surge were Somali. Council on American Islamic Relations Minnesota Executive Director Jelani Hussein wasn't surprised.
This was what was expected. Majority of Somali Americans are U.S. citizens. Majority of Somali Americans have legal status here.
Our news partner, NPR, found most of the people arrested were Latin American. Based on the country of origin, Ecuador had the highest number of immigration arrests at 1,026. Mexico is second with 885. Venezuela had 224, while Somalia had 106.
We said this in many different ways that this operation, while it targeted Somali Americans, was really kind of focused on the larger Latin American population. The increase of the ICE surge was a result because they could not produce Somali Americans being deported.
NPR reports more than 3,700 Minnesota residents were arrested by federal agents during Operation Metro Surge. The federal administration says this operation was meant to get the worst of the worst off the streets. Less than a quarter of them had a criminal conviction on their record, according to NPR.
However, what this data does not show is the violation of U.S. citizens who were detained and many who were questioned.
The Deportation Data Project, which had to sue under the Freedom of Information Act, states the data is likely incomplete because ICE didn't include detention stints in hospitals and medical centers. The data also includes duplicate arrests. In Minneapolis, Jessica Hart, Kare 11 News.
NPR reports that the data shows about 35% of federal arrests during this period were, quote, collateral rather than targeted, meaning people were just swept up by ICE agents while at bus stops or public sidewalks during the surge. Also starting today, SNAP recipients must now prove they work 80 hours a month to continue receiving their benefits. That includes seniors ages 55 to 64, an age group previously exempt from those work requirements. Recipients got a 3-month grace period when the One Big Beautiful bill went into effect on January 1st. Local food shelves estimate 12,000 Minnesota seniors could lose their benefits if they don't meet that requirement. Starting today, Minnesota businesses who want to sell hemp and THC products can apply for a license. It's for businesses that want to sell or make products like THC drinks or gummies. That's happening despite the looming uncertainty due to new hemp regulations that were passed by Congress. The state's Office of Cannabis Management says about 3,500 businesses applied for hemp licenses over the last 5 months. That application window ended this week with a new one starting today. Demand remains high, but in about 8 months, new federal regulations are set to kick in that will essentially make hemp illegal nationwide. Since it's legal here in Minnesota, breweries can still sell products like THC seltzers here, but could not ship them across state lines, which could have a devastating impact on businesses. The Office of Cannabis Management says it's still moving forward with applications despite the uncertainty.
We saw it as imperative for the office to march forward with that licensing structure. And in the event that something does change federally, we think not only as a state from the regulatory perspective, but also on a business side, our businesses will be well positioned to succeed.
At the federal level, there's a bipartisan push by Minnesota's congressional delegation to reverse the hemp ban. Meanwhile, here at the state capitol, the legislature just approved a new measure this session around hemp to ease the backlog of testing and oversight by allowing for out-of-state testing. Governor Walz has already signed that bill. Right now, the Crystal Police Department is stepping up patrols at Becker Park due to issues with massive groups of teenagers. According to police, groups of 75 to 150 unsupervised kids have come to the park over the past 3 days using rideshare services. They say numerous fights have broken out and the groups have used Orbeez guns and pepper spray. Police say they have made multiple arrests and will take action against parents who allow their kids to participate in these activities. This park has seen similar issues over the last few years. For the first time this week, Minnesota marked Farm Workers Day instead of honoring disgraced labor leader Cesar Chavez. The change comes less than 2 weeks after a New York Times investigation detailed allegations that Chavez sexually abused girls involved in his movement, including United Farm Workers co-founder Dolores Huerta. A lot has changed since that last report. Here's Ian Russell.
Well, we're not boycotting the stores.
For nearly half a century, Cesar Chavez has been a legendary name, a civil rights icon known for helping shape the farm labor movement.
What happened changed the ground rules for farm workers all across the United States. That's very important.
Tributes to Chavez are nationwide. Statues and street signs and days are reserved for his legacy.
Who's harvesting the wheat?
Labor historian Peter Ratcliffe knows Chavez's legacy well. As a child in Connecticut, he stood outside grocery stores telling shoppers to not buy grapes.
It mattered to me what rights farm workers had in California.
But after an investigation by the New York Times exposed allegations of sexual abuse and rape committed by Chavez, those tributes have largely changed or been removed.
And I think this is a confounding story that a man who's been a hero is now revealed to have been an abuser and an exploiter.
Across the country, statues have been covered and days have been renamed in honor of the farm workers themselves.
This is an opportunity for all of our communities to place healing and to recognize the hard dedication and work of our farmers.
In Minnesota, the state legislature unanimously voted to repeal Cesar Chavez Day, set for March 31st, instead now recognizing farm workers. Places bearing Chavez's name have been stripped of their signage. Academia Cesar Chavez removed their signs and say they're working on changing the school's name. When I called, the voicemail now simply says,
"Welcome to Academia Charter School."
Cesar Chavez Street is still up in St. Paul, as are several murals with Chavez on them. Local businesses nearby say they're focusing on what the community wants before they make changes.
It opens a door to a new level of understanding.
Ratcliffe says going forward, this is the chance to focus on the movement, not the man.
This is an opportunity to recognize people that we have accepted their invisibility for generations. Now we can think about who they are.
A chance to change the narrative as the country comes to understand a changed legacy.
It's our responsibility, all of us. What do we do with contradictions? What do we do with complications? How do we sort our way through what's confounding? And this is unfortunately quite an example of that.
Now, many of the events across the country are now named for the farm workers themselves. Some, like Denver, have even changed the name to Si Se Puede Day, which means yes, we can. That phrase was popularized by Chavez, but was coined by Dolores Huerta. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.